The alarm screamed through every corridor of Heaven's Gate. Captain Daehyun stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display turn red sector by sector. 300 human colonies had gone dark in the past 6 months. Now the Velcrin Armada was here, at humanity's last major defensive station. All ships report ready for evacuation jump, Lieutenant Sung-min said from his station. The young officer's hands shook slightly as he worked the controls. His father had died 3 months ago defending the Outer Rim. Now Sung-min wore his father's rank insignia on his collar. Daehyun nodded. Begin evacuation protocol. Civilian transports first. He had fought the Velcrin for 2 years. Every battle ended the same way. Retreat, regroup, watch another world fall. The enemy was simply better at everything. Better ships, better weapons, better soldiers. The station shuddered as enemy fire struck the outer shields. Red emergency lights flickered across the bridge. Daehyun counted the seconds in his head. They had maybe 10 minutes before the shields failed completely. The bridge door slid open. A woman in a gray research uniform rushed in, her black hair wild and her eyes desperate. Dr. Hannah clutched a data tablet against her chest like it was made of gold. "Captain, I need to speak with you," she said, breathing hard. "It's urgent. Doctor, we're evacuating. Whatever research you have can wait." Daehyun turned back to the display. Another shield section went yellow. 8 minutes now. It can't wait. I found something in the old archives. Something from before the colony era. Before the space age. Before everything. Hannah moved closer, lowering her voice. I found references to something called the Sleepers. Daehyun had heard many desperate ideas in the past 2 years. Scientists promising miracle weapons. Politicians suggesting surrender terms. Admirals proposing suicide attacks. All of them grasping at hope while humanity drowned. "I don't have time for ancient history," he said. They were warriors. Soldiers from Earth's past. They were sealed away 12,000 years ago in underground facilities. The records say they were too dangerous to keep awake, but too valuable to kill. Hannah's words came fast, tumbling over each other. The archives say to wake them only if humanity faces extinction. We don't face extinction. We face defeat. Those are different things. But even as Daehyun said it, he wondered if it was true. The Velcrin showed no mercy. Every conquered human world went silent. No survivors. No prisoners. Just silence. Sung-min called out from his station. "Captain, Velcrin battlecruisers breaking through the defensive line. They'll be in firing range in 4 minutes." Ambassador Jiwoo stepped forward from the back of the bridge. The older woman had once negotiated trade agreements between star systems. Now she coordinated refugee movements and resistance cells. "Captain, let her speak. What do we have to lose?" "Our lives, Ambassador. Our ships. The 10,000 civilians on this station." Daehyun felt the weight of command pressing down on his shoulders. Every decision could be the last one. Hannah thrust the tablet toward him. "The main facility is on Earth, in the Himalayan quarantine zone. The coordinates are in these files. The archives say the Sleepers were put into cryogenic suspension after Earth's last war. That war was so terrible that all records of it were deliberately destroyed. Humanity started over from scratch. If the records were destroyed, how do you know about it?" Daehyun glanced at the data scrolling across her tablet. Ancient languages. Fragmentary texts. Mathematical coordinates. Someone left clues. Warnings hidden in archaeological sites. Encrypted messages in genetic databases. It's like they wanted future humans to find the Sleepers only if we were desperate enough to look. Hannah's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "The last message I decoded said, they volunteered to sleep so we could live. Wake them only when extinction is certain." The station shook violently. Sparks erupted from a control panel. Soon-Min reported casualties on decks 12 through 15. The shields were failing faster than predicted. 3 minutes, Captain, Soon-Min said quietly. Daehan looked around his bridge. At the young lieutenant who had lost his father. At the ambassador who had watched her entire career become meaningless. At the scientist offering him a myth from 12,000 years ago. Outside the viewports, he could see evacuation ships fleeing into hyperspace, carrying what remained of humanity's presence in this sector. If these sleepers exist, why were they locked away? What made them too dangerous? Daehan asked. Hannah met his eyes. I don't know. The warnings suggest they were incredibly effective soldiers. Maybe too effective. Maybe they frightened the people who created them. But Captain, we're losing this war. In 6 months, maybe a year, the Velkron will reach Earth. Everything ends. Captain, we need to evacuate now, Soon-Min urged. The Velkron are targeting our engines. Daehan made his decision. Soon-Min, plot a course for Earth, Himalayan sector. We're not evacuating with the fleet, sir. The lieutenant looked shocked. You heard me. If Dr. Hana is right, we have one chance. If she's wrong, we die here anyway. Daehan turned to Ji Woo. Ambassador, get yourself on an evacuation ship. Tell Fleet Command what we're attempting. Ji Woo shook her head. I'm coming with you, Captain. You'll need someone to speak for humanity if these ancient warriors wake up angry. The station's main reactor exploded on the lower decks. The bridge tilted as artificial gravity fluctuated. Daehan grabbed his command chair to stay upright. Jump now, Lieutenant. Before we lose the engines completely. Soon-Min's fingers flew across his controls. Space twisted around their small command ship as it separated from the dying station. Reality bent and stretched. For a moment, Daehan saw Heaven's Gate through the viewport, consumed by fire and Velkron weapons. Then they were gone, hurtling through hyperspace toward Earth, and a legend 12,000 years old. Earth hung in the view screen like a blue and green jewel wrapped in storms. Daehan had never seen humanity's homeworld before. Most humans hadn't. After the Himalayan incident 8,000 years ago, whole regions of the planet had been declared off-limits. Automated defense satellites still orbited those zones, shooting down anything that approached without proper clearance codes. We don't have proper clearance codes, Soon-Min said, studying the navigational data. The satellites use encryption that's been updated for 8 millennia. We can't hack them. We don't need to hack them. Commander Ba'ar emerged from the ship's lower deck. She was a short woman with scarred hands and gray streaks in her black hair. Before the war, she had run black operations for military intelligence. Now she was one of the few stealth ship captains still alive. We just need to be very, very quiet. Lara had joined them at the rendezvous point near Mars. Her ship, Shadowlight, was designed to avoid detection. It could slip past enemy sensors like a ghost. At least, that was the theory. No one had ever tested it against 8,000-year-old automated defenses that have been continuously upgrading themselves. How quiet can we be? Daehan asked. Quiet enough if we're lucky. Bajora smiled without humor. And if we're not lucky, those satellites will vaporize us before we know they detected us. Dr. Hana spread her research data across the holographic display. The Himalayan mountains appeared in blue wireframe, rotating slowly. A red dot pulsed deep beneath the peaks. The coordinates point here. 5 kilometers underground. There's a massive complex down there according to the old seismic data. 5 kilometers of solid rock, Soon-Min muttered. How do we even reach it? There's an entrance. An old maintenance shaft that was sealed but never destroyed. The ancients wanted the option to return. Hannah zoomed in on a narrow canyon. Here. We land here and hike 3 kilometers to the shaft entrance. Engineer Tae Yang laughed from his station. The young man wore oil-stained coveralls and had a habit of taking apart equipment just to see how it worked. Hike? Captain, when was the last time any of us hiked anywhere? We live on spaceships. Then we learn fast, Daehan said. Ba'ara, get us down there. The descent through Earth's atmosphere was smooth until they entered the quarantine zone. The first satellite detected them immediately. Warning signals screamed through the cockpit. Ba'ara's hands moved across the controls with practiced precision, adjusting their trajectory, their speed, their energy signature. The satellite's targeting laser swept past them by meters. It's treating us like a meteor, Ba'ara whispered, not daring to speak loudly as if the satellites might hear her. Small, cold, dead, just space debris falling to Earth. They landed in the canyon 30 minutes later. The air outside was thin and cold. Daehan pulled on an environment suit and checked his oxygen levels. The others did the same. They looked ridiculous. Trained spaceship officers, dressed like mountain climbers with weapons strapped to their backs. Ambassador Jiwoo was the oldest among them. She struggled with the suit's weight. I negotiated peace treaties in comfortable conference rooms. This is not my area of expertise. It's not anyone's area of expertise, Daehan said. We make it up as we go. The hike took 6 hours. The path was treacherous, covered in rocks and ice. Tae Yang fell twice, saved only by his safety tether. Sung-min kept checking his scanner for Vulcan ships. The enemy hadn't reached Earth yet, but they were coming. Every day brought them closer. The shaft entrance was hidden behind a collapsed rockfall. It took another 2 hours to clear enough space to squeeze through. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. Emergency lights flickered on as they descended, responding to their presence. The shaft went down and down, cut through solid stone with precision that modern engineers would envy. Someone spent a fortune building this, Tae Yang said, running his hand along the smooth walls. This isn't a simple bunker. This is a vault. At 3 kilometers depth, they found the first door. It was massive, made of some dark metal that showed no signs of age. Ancient text covered its surface. Hannah studied the writing with her portable scanner. It's a warning. It says, "Beyond this point lie those who volunteered for eternal sleep. They are our shame and our salvation. Wake them only if all else has failed." She looked at Daehyang. There's more. It says, "They will ask what took us so long." That's oddly specific. Biora muttered. Tae Yang found the control panel hidden in the wall. It took him an hour to decode the access sequence. The door groaned open, revealing a corridor lit by blue emergency lights. The walls were lined with windows. Behind each window was a cryogenic pod. Daehyun approached the nearest pod. Inside was a man, preserved in frozen sleep. He looked young, maybe 30 years old. His face was peaceful, but there was something about him, something in the way his muscles were structured. That seemed wrong, enhanced, modified beyond natural human limits. There are thousands of them, Sung-min said, his voice echoing down the corridor. Tens of thousands. They walked deeper into the complex. The corridors branched and split, creating a vast underground city of sleeping soldiers. Every pod had a nameplate. Daehyun read them as he passed. Names from 12,000 years ago. People who had chosen to sleep forever rather than live with what they had done. Hannah stopped at a large central chamber. In the middle stood a control console covered in dust. Above it, a holographic display waited to activate. This is it. The awakening controls. Once we activate this, they'll start to revive. The process takes about 6 hours. Can we wake just a few? Test them first? Ambassador Jiwoo asked nervously. No, it's all or nothing. The system is designed to wake everyone simultaneously. Safety measure, I think. So no one wakes up alone. Hannah's hand hovered over the activation button. Captain, once we do this, we can't undo it. Daehyun thought about Heaven's Gate burning, about 300 silent colonies, about Soo-min's dead father and Baira's destroyed homeworld, about humanity's last desperate chance. Do it, he said. Hannah pressed the button. The console came to life. Blue light flooded the chamber. Throughout the complex, the cryogenic pods began to hum. The awakening sequence had started. Alarms suddenly blared through their communicators. Soo-min checked his scanner, his face going pale. Captain, Vulcan hunter ships just entered orbit. 3 of them. They're scanning the surface. They followed us, Baora said flatly. My stealth systems aren't perfect. Somehow they tracked us. How long until they find us? Daehyun asked. Soon-min ran calculations. 4 hours. Maybe 5 if we're lucky. Daehyun looked at the sleeping warriors in their pods. They needed 6 hours to wake. Humanity's last hope would die before it even opened its eyes. The first pod opened with a hiss of ancient air. Medical officer Kyung-soo rushed forward with his equipment. He had joined them at the Mars Rendezvous, a quiet man who specialized in revival procedures. But he had never revived anyone who had been frozen for 12,000 years. Vital signs are weak but present, Kyung-soo said, watching his scanner. Heartbeat starting. Brain activity increasing. This shouldn't be possible. Human cells can't survive this long in suspension. They weren't entirely human, Hana said quietly, reading data from her tablet. The genetic scans show modifications. Enhanced muscle density. Reinforced bone structure. Neural pathways that don't exist in modern humans. The man in the pod opened his eyes. They were dark and confused. He tried to speak, but only managed a rasping sound. Kyung-soo quickly administered fluids and oxygen. The man's breathing steadied. His eyes focused. Where? The word came out in an ancient dialect. Hannah's translation program struggled to process it. Where is the war? It's over, Hannah said in modern standard. It's been over for 12,000 years. The man stared at her like she had spoken nonsense. Then he looked down at his own hands. His fingers clenched and unclenched. Testing, remembering. Then why did you wake us? Before anyone could answer, he moved. Fast. Impossibly fast. He was out of the pod and across the chamber before Daehyun could react. The ancient warrior grabbed Baora's weapon from her holster and aimed it at the group. Nobody move, the man said. His pronunciation of modern standard was terrible but understandable. You woke me. That means extinction is here. Where is the enemy? Above us, Daehyun said calmly, hands raised. In orbit. Alien ships hunting us. We're losing a war. Humanity needs your help. The man lowered the weapon slightly. Aliens. The old treaty said there were no aliens. The galaxy was empty. He looked around the chamber at the thousands of pods still in the awakening process. How many of us did you wake? All of you, Hana admitted. 47,000 soldiers. The man closed his eyes. For a moment, he looked very tired. Very old. You shouldn't have. We're not heroes. We're what heroes have nightmares about. More pods were opening. Men and women emerged, gasping and confused. Kyung-soo moved between them with his medical equipment, trying to help everyone at once. Some of the awakened warriors adapted quickly. Others fell to their knees, overwhelmed by time and loss. One woman saw the first man with the weapon. She spoke in the ancient dialect, rapid and harsh. He answered in the same language. They seemed to be arguing. Finally, the man handed Bedor's weapon back to her. I am Jae-sung, he said to Daehyun. I was a company commander in Earth's last war. This is Minna. She was a fleet coordinator. He gestured to the woman beside him. "We need information. Tell us everything." They gathered in the central chamber as more warriors woke around them. Daehyun explained the Velkran War, the 300 dead colonies, the retreating human fleets, the approaching extinction. As he spoke, the ancient soldiers listened with expressions he couldn't read. When he finished, Minna spoke. "You lost 300 worlds in 2 years? What kind of warriors are you?" There was no mockery in her voice, just genuine confusion. "The kind who follow rules of war," Ambassador Ji-woo said stiffly. "The kind who don't target civilians, who take prisoners, who fight with honor." Jae-sung laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Honor. We remember that word. It's what nearly destroyed humanity last time." He walked to a wall display and activated it with a touch. Images appeared. Cities burning. Oceans boiling. Forests turned to ash. This was Earth during the last war. 17 billion humans lived on this planet. When the war ended, 3 million survived. What happened? Sung-min whispered. "We happened," Mea said. "Humanity discovered genetic enhancement, neural augmentation. We made ourselves into weapons. Then we split into factions, enhanced versus unenhanced. The war lasted 40 years. We killed each other with a creativity that would make your aliens look merciful." Jae-sung continued the story. When it finally ended, the survivors made a choice. They erased all records of the war, destroyed all enhancement technology, started civilization over from scratch. But they couldn't kill us. We were too useful, too dangerous to let exist, but too valuable to waste. So they asked for volunteers. Volunteers for what? Daehyun asked, though he was starting to understand. To sleep. To be put away until humanity faced extinction again. They promised they would only wake us if there was no other choice. Jae-sung looked at his hands again. Hands that had killed thousands. We volunteered because we were tired. Tired of war. Tired of what we had become. We thought sleep would be rest, forgiveness, but you woke us. So forgiveness never came. The chamber filled with awakened warriors. They moved differently than modern humans. More fluid. More aware. Like predators in human skin. Some were crying silently. Others stared at nothing, processing 12,000 years of loss. Everyone they had known was dust. Their entire world was gone. Kyung-soo approached Daehyun. "Captain, we have a problem. Some of them aren't adjusting well. The psychological shock is severe. I have one man in Pod 47 who's catatonic. A woman in Pod 92 who's become violent. We don't have the facilities to help them. We don't have time to help them," Biora interrupted. "Captain, the Vulcan ships are descending. They've located our entry point. 3 hours until they breach the complex." Jae-sung overheard. He turned to his fellow warriors and spoke in the ancient dialect. They responded, voices rising. Arguments broke out. Some warriors wanted to fight. Others wanted to go back into the pods. A few wanted to die. Finally, Jae-sung held up his hand for silence. He switched back to modern standard. "We will fight your war, Captain. Not because we want to, but because extinction means we slept for nothing. Our sacrifice meant nothing." He looked around at his people. "We are the worst humanity ever created. Let's show these aliens why we were locked away." Minna stepped forward. "But Captain, when this war is over, you need to answer a question. Can you live with us in peacetime? Can you integrate monsters into your civilized society? Because if the answer is no, you should kill us after we've saved you. It would be kinder than making us live in a world that fears what we are." Daehyun had no answer for that. Above them, Vulcan ships descended toward the complex. Around them, 47,000 ancient warriors prepared for a war they never wanted to wake up for. The awakening was complete. Now came the hard part. Admiral Yeon was the last to wake. She emerged from her pod with the bearing of someone who had commanded fleets when the stars were young. Her gray hair was cut short. Her eyes were hard. When she saw the modern humans standing in her facility, she simply nodded as if expecting them. "I see we failed to stay asleep," she said. Her modern standard was better than the others. "Show me the tactical situation." They moved to the command center while the complex shook from Velcrum bombardment above. Yeon studied the displays showing humanity's retreating fleets and conquered territories. She watched recordings of Velcrum ships in battle. She said nothing for 10 minutes. "Your ships are too clean," she finally said. "Too organized. You fight like you're afraid to break things. The enemy fights to win. You fight to not lose. There's a difference. We fight with strategy and honor," Daehyun said, feeling defensive. "Strategy is good. Honor is a luxury. When you're losing, you don't need luxury." Yeon turned to Jae-sung. "How many of our people are combat ready?" 38,000. The rest need more time to adjust. Some won't ever adjust. Jae-sung's face was grim. "We lost 9 warriors already. They chose not to wake. Suicide protocols." Yeon absorbed this without emotion. "Then we used the 38,000. Captain Daehyun, I need ships, weapons, and I need you to give me operational command." "I can't just hand over command," Daehyun protested. "You're not part of the military chain of command. You've been asleep for 12,000 years. Then don't hand it over. Watch us work. Learn. Decide later." Yeon smiled coldly. "But the Velcrum ships will breach this facility in 90 minutes. We need to leave now. Do you have ships?" Bioris stepped forward. "I have contacts. Resistance cells with hidden vessels. Old military equipment that was supposed to be scrapped. It's not much. Show me." Yeon examined Bioris' data. "This will work. Not for a fleet action, but for what we need. Engineer Tae-yang, can you retrofit these ships with modern weapons?" Tae-yang looked overwhelmed. "Maybe. It would take weeks, months. You have 3 days. Make it work." Yeon turned to Ambassador Ji-woo. "You need to contact what remains of humanity's government. Tell them Admiral Yeon has assumed tactical command of all resistance operations. They can argue about legitimacy after we win." Ji-woo bristled. "I don't take orders from you. No, you don't. But you want to save humanity. So do I. We can fight each other later." Yeon's gaze was steady. "Ambassador, I've commanded fleets when Earth's survival was measured in hours. I've made choices that still haunt me 12,000 years later. Let me make those choices again so you don't have to." They escaped the complex through maintenance tunnels as Velcrum forces breached the upper levels. The ancient warriors moved through the darkness with frightening efficiency. When they encountered enemy soldiers, the battles were brief and brutal. Modern humans fought with weapons. The ancient warriors fought with everything: hands, teeth, stolen equipment. Anything to survive. Soon-min watched Jae-sung kill 3 Velcrum soldiers in under 10 seconds. No wasted movement. No hesitation. Just efficient violence. "They fight like animals," he whispered to Daehyun. "No, they are corrected. Animals fight on instinct. They fight like people who removed everything but the will to survive." They reached the surface and scattered to different locations. Over the next 3 days, the ancient warriors integrated into the resistance. Admiral Yeon took command with quiet authority. She didn't ask permission. She simply started giving orders, and people followed because her confidence was absolute. The Battle of Crimson Nebula came 2 weeks later. The Velcrum had pushed deep into human space, heading for the core worlds. Their fleet numbered 300 ships. Humanity gathered every available vessel to stop them. 97 ships total. A hopeless battle. Yeon commanded from a retrofitted cargo hauler. Her fleet was a joke by military standards. Old transport ships with weapons welded to their hulls. Mining vessels with improvised shields. Civilian craft crewed by volunteers. And 20 small assault ships carrying the ancient warriors. The enemy outnumbers us 3-1, Sung-min reported. Recommend we withdraw and regroup. No. Yeon studied the tactical display. We attack, but not their ships. We attack their flagship. We decapitate their command structure. That's suicide, Daehyun said. The flagship has the heaviest shields in their fleet. Shields stop energy weapons. They don't stop borders. Yeon smiled. Captain, your navy fights clean wars with rules and honor. We fight to win. Watch and learn. The battle began badly. The Velkran fleet tore through the human defensive line. Ships exploded. Escape pods scattered into space. It looked like another defeat. Then Yeon's assault ships launched. 20 vessels moving at impossible speed, taking damage but not stopping. They're going to ram the flagship, Sung-min said in horror. No, Yeon said calmly. They're going to board it. The assault ship slammed into the Velkran flagship's docking bays. Emergency bulkheads sealed, but the ancient warriors cut through with equipment that should have taken hours. They were inside in minutes. What happened next? Daehyun watched through hull cameras in disbelief. 20 ships. 400 ancient warriors. They moved through the Velkran flagship like a plague. Not fighting to capture. Fighting to destroy. They sabotaged life support. They detonated reactor containment fields. They reached the bridge and killed every commanding officer in close combat. The flagship exploded from the inside. Its destruction threw the Velkran fleet into confusion. Yeon pressed the attack. The human fleet targeted the disorganized enemy ships. Within an hour, the Velkran were retreating, but the cost was heavy. Of the 400 ancient warriors who boarded, only 43 returned. The rest died in the explosion or fighting through corridors. Jae-sung's armor was scorched black. Minna carried a Velkran weapon, her own loss somewhere in the battle. News of the victory spread through human space. But so did recordings of what the ancient warriors had done. Videos showed them executing wounded Velkran, using captured enemies as shields, fighting with a savagery that shocked modern sensibilities. They're calling us war criminals, Minna said, watching the news reports. They're calling for our arrest. They're also calling us saviors, Jae-sung noted. Humans are complicated. They want us to win their war, but they don't want to watch how we do it. Daehyun found Yeon in her quarters. We won the battle, but we're losing the moral argument. Half the fleet wants you court-martialed. Let them try after the war is over. Yeon didn't look up from her tactical planning. Captain, I know what we are. I know what we look like to you. But your enemy doesn't understand honor. They understand strength, fear, loss. We speak their language. At what cost? Daehyun asked. At the cost of your innocence. You wanted saviors. You got monsters instead. The question is, can you live with that long enough to survive? Yeon finally looked at him. Because, Captain, we're just getting started. The war turned slowly, then all at once. Over 6 months, the ancient warriors trained modern soldiers in their brutal tactics. Admiral Yeon restructured the entire human fleet around speed and aggression instead of defensive formations. Jae-sung led commando raids deep into enemy territory. They didn't fight fair. They fought to win. The Velkran had never faced an enemy like this. For 2 years, they had steamrolled through human space, encountering organized resistance that followed predictable patterns. Now they faced chaos. Human ships appeared from nowhere, attacked, vanished. Supply lines were sabotaged. Communications were jammed with psychological warfare broadcasts. Captured Velcran biotechnology was weaponized and turned against its creators. They're adapting, Dr. Hana reported after analyzing enemy communications. The Velcran are starting to fear us. Their soldiers call humans the demons from old Earth. They're requesting reinforcements before attacking even small colonies. Now, good, Ian said. Fear is a weapon. Use it. But the victories came with a cost that kept Dehayan awake at night. In the liberation of New Seoul, ancient warriors executed 300 Velcran prisoners after the battle. When questioned, Jae-sung simply said they couldn't spare the resources to hold prisoners. When human forces retook the colony of Garden World, they found that retreating Velcran had destroyed the infrastructure. Yeon's response was to order strikes on Velcran civilian supply stations. Tit for tat. This isn't who we are, Ambassador Jiwoo argued in the command center. We're becoming as bad as them. No, Minna said quietly. We're becoming what we need to be to survive. There's a difference. A small difference, but it exists. The arguments split humanity. Some celebrated the ancient warriors as heroes. Others called them war criminals who needed to be stopped. Religious leaders preached about losing humanity's soul to save its body. Politicians positioned themselves for the post-war power struggles. Through it all, the ancient warriors kept fighting. Not because they enjoyed it, but because stopping meant their sacrifice 12,000 years ago had been for nothing. The final battle came at the Velcran throne world. Intelligence reports showed it was their home system, heavily fortified with their entire remaining fleet. Yeon proposed a direct assault. The military council called it suicide. She did it anyway. We going fast and hard, Yeon briefed her commanders. We target their orbital platforms first. Then we land ground forces. We make them fight for every city, every street. We make victory so costly they surrender rather than watch their homeworld burn. That's genocide, a modern admiral protested. We're talking about destroying an entire civilization. I'm talking about ending a war, Eon said coldly. If they wanted mercy, they shouldn't have attacked us first. Captain Daehyun, what do you say? You're the one who woke us. Do we finish what you started? Daehyun looked around the room, at the tired faces of modern officers who wanted the war to end, but wanted to keep their morals intact. At the hard faces of ancient warriors who'd already lost their morals 12,000 years ago. At Sung Min, who had lost his father and wanted revenge, but didn't want to become a monster. We attack, Daehyun finally said, but we offer surrender terms. If they yield, we stop. No genocide. No total destruction. We're not them. Agreed, Eon said, surprising everyone. I fight to win, not to exterminate. There's a difference. The assault on the Velcran throne world lasted 3 days. The fighting was terrible. Human ships clawed through orbital defenses. Ancient warriors led ground forces through cities turned into war zones. Modern soldiers followed, horrified by the brutality but unable to deny its effectiveness. On the third day, Jae-sung's unit penetrated the Velcran command center. They were pinned down by heavy fire. Escape was impossible. Soo-min, who had been shadowing Jae-sung to learn from him, saw the ancient warrior preparing to charge straight into enemy guns. Wait, Soo-min said. I have a better way. He uploaded a virus into the Velcran computer systems, something Taeyang had designed weeks ago. The enemy automated defenses went offline for 30 seconds. Just enough time for Jae-sung's unit to advance, but the Velcran had backup systems. They came online faster than expected. Soo-min was caught in the open. Enemy fire cut through his armor. He fell. Bleeding. Jae-sung reached him in seconds, pulling him to cover. But it was too late. The damage was catastrophic. Sung-min's breathing came in short gasps. "I'm sorry," Jae-sung said, and for the first time, he sounded like he meant it. "You were a good soldier. Better than me." "Not better," Sung-min whispered. "Just different. Tell my father. Tell him I understood why he fought." His eyes lost focus. The Velkrans surrendered 6 hours later. The cost of defending their homeworld had broken them. They agreed to human terms. Withdraw from all conquered space. Pay reparations. Submit to occupation oversight. The war was over. Humanity celebrated. Parades filled the streets of surviving colonies. The modern military was praised for its courage. The ancient warriors were conspicuously absent from most celebrations. They stayed in their ships, quiet and apart. Daehyun found Jae-sung in the cargo bay of a transport ship, sitting alone among supply crates. "We won," Daehyun said. "You should celebrate." "Should I?" "Sung-min is dead. 4,000 of our people are dead. 20,000 modern soldiers are dead. 300 colonies are ruins. We won by becoming the thing we were locked away for being." Jae-sung looked at his hands again. "Old habit. Captain, you asked if we could integrate into peacetime society. I have your answer. No, we can't. We're too dangerous. Too damaged. We see threats everywhere. We solve problems with violence. Some of your people are adapting. Minna has been helping with reconstruction planning. Engineer Taeyang has been working with Admiral Yeon on new ship designs. Some, not all. Many of us are broken. The psychological trauma of waking up after 12,000 years only to immediately fight another war. We're not heroes, Captain. We're survivors of one apocalypse thrown into another." Jae-sung stood. "What happens to us now?" Daehyun had been dreading this conversation. "That's being debated. Someone you put back into suspension. Someone trials for war crimes. Someone you integrated into society. It's complicated. Everything with humans is complicated." Jae-sung almost smiled. "Here's what I think should happen. Let us go. Give us ships. Let us settle frontier worlds far from your civilized space. We'll be your shield. If threats come from deep space, we'll handle them. You won't have to watch. You won't have to compromise your values. You just have to accept that monsters guard your borders." Ambassador Jiwoo appeared in the doorway. She had been listening. "Is that what you want? Exile? It's what's best. For you and for us." Jae-sung looked at both of them. "You needed monsters to win your war. Now you've won. Can you live with monsters in peacetime?" Honestly, neither of them could answer immediately. Jiwoo finally spoke. "I don't know, but I know we owe you our survival. Exile seems like poor repayment. It's not exile. It's freedom. Freedom from your judgment. Freedom from trying to fit into a world we don't understand. Freedom to be what we are without apology." Jae-sung walked toward the exit. "Discuss it with your government. We'll accept whatever decision you make. We always have." 2 months later, a fleet of 20 ships departed human core space. 17,000 ancient warriors chose to go. They headed for the frontier, the wild space beyond civilized boundaries. They would be humanity's early warning system, its first line of defense, its hidden guardians. The remaining warriors stayed, trying to integrate. Some succeeded. Others struggled. A few didn't survive the peace. They had been built for war and couldn't function without it. Dr. Hana continued researching the past. She found one final archive, buried deeper than all the others. It was a message from the people who had first put the ancient warriors to sleep. "This is our third attempt," the The message read, "The first time we faced extinction, we created the enhanced. They saved us but nearly destroyed us. The second time, we woke the enhanced. They saved us but the cost was terrible. Now we've sealed them away again. If you're reading this, you woke them a third time. We're sorry. Sorry we left you such a burden. Sorry we couldn't find a better answer. Sorry we created monsters and then expected you to fix them. Learn from our mistakes. Find a better way." The Ion read the message 3 times. There had been 2 previous awakenings, 2 previous wars, 2 previous attempts to balance survival with humanity. Each time, the people who woke the ancient warriors struggled with the same questions. He forwarded the message to Jae-sung's ship. The response came back within an hour. Just 3 words. "We know. The war was won. Humanity survived." But the question remained, unanswered and perhaps unanswerable. At what cost? At what cost?